So I'm from New York. I grew up in upstate New York, and I was kind of a timid kid growing up, but I have learned really quickly throughout the years that there's no limitations. Well, there are some limitations with having albinism, but there's not as many as you would think. So I am a social worker. I got my master's in social work about 10 years ago. I live in New York City. I have met many people with albinism. I used to work as a day hab specialist in New York City. And so I've had a lot of good experiences with people who are very successful with albinism, people who got a lot of good resources. So I took my desires to help people into my profession as a social worker. I work as a clinical case manager for an insurance company, and I help people with disabilities, with mental health claims, like mental health disabilities get some benefits and return to work resources. But most importantly, I am a super big runner and hiker. I love to travel. My family thinks I'm probably insane. But just growing up with albinism, I actually had parents who encouraged me to do activities. Like, my parents never limited me. There may have been people in my life that told me to, like, you can't do something, but I'm very fortunate to have two parents who did not limit me. So I had a lot of good experiences growing up with albinism. I had some not so good experiences growing up with albinism because people can be harsh, and there's definitely some challenges.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and maybe going there, how was it growing up with albinism? Maybe I should give you a small background. With Born to White, most of our members and participants within our organization are newcomers. People just came to either US or Canada less than 5-10 years ago. But now that you're born in the US, how was it different being a person with albinism in the United States?
Well, I think it depends on where you live and what resources you have. So I would honestly say I was fortunate. So I grew up in, like, not New York City. I grew up like a little bit north of New York City, where the county I lived in had really good resources. I had amazing counselors, but then I worked in like other places and I didn't see the same amount of resources. So it really depends on your family's ability to honor and accept that you have a disability, but you also have abilities. I do know, like, I grew up in the 90s, so like there was a lot of limitations in being able to access technology. I mean, to now, God, I would love to have been a kid. Like, now with all the technology, I would have been so much better in school. I mean, I was super good in school.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know how much I can speak to, like, I had a lot of good resources, but I do know people that didn't. And I do know people that have lived in different countries, and it is not the same. And so I have a hard time, of course, speaking to that, but I'm the first person to say, like, I had a lot of good support. But also, it still was challenging. It still was super challenging because you are still dealing with the bottom line is you have a disability.
Yeah.
You still have to be able to achieve things that it may not be as simple to other people. So,
definitely. Yeah. And maybe, what's your type of albinism? Is it ocular cutaneous or just ocular?
The first one, so I have no pigment, eyes, skin, hair, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's fun because.
Yes.
Sorry. It's interesting because my parents are Italian, and they look Italian. My younger sister looks Italian. My older sister also has albinism, so we look the same. Like, we have the white hair and everything. But that was different for me growing up because my parents didn't look like me, but not the drastic difference, of course, with being Black versus Caucasian. But it was still different. It was still a challenge. Feeling like you didn't fit in with your family, or my family always let me fit in, but like, just society thinking that you're adopted or different from
Yeah. And maybe for those who doesn't know you perfectly, you are an active individual with albinism, and maybe what's the limit? We all know, like, having ocular cutaneous, you have sight issues, and maybe your skin is susceptible to the sunlight. How is it fine for you to be out all the time skiing and doing everything that you're doing?
So I purchased a gallon of sunblock a few years ago. I have this giant gallon of sunblock in my house. But in all honesty, yes, like it is something that you have to be very vigilant. I remember growing up, I didn't do as many outdoor stuff because I assumed that it would be hard to do that because I'd have to constantly worry about my skin and my eyes. And I was one of those stubborn kids that never wanted to wear a hat, never wanted to wear like sunglasses. And I was such a brat. But I mean, I joke that I have a gallon of sunblock, but I do. And I actually always have sunblock in my purse. I always have it in my pack because it's something that I need. I'm always wearing a hat now. I always have to wear sunglasses. And I think that's just part of it. You have to take care of yourself and know that that's going to keep you alive, basically. Because I have been sunburnt super bad when I was younger. But I can do it. I live in California where it doesn't rain and it's sunny all the damn time. And so I am out. I was in Utah a few weeks ago and it was so hot and so sunny. And I was just lathering on sunblock every hour. And that's the thing if you're vigilant. So that's my joke.
Yeah, I have a friend who happened to have albinism, and he told me how many times he has gone out and he keeps falling, like he's not that much attentive, so he keeps falling from the like you keep having nearly accident that people with the sight privilege do not have. And maybe a question that I'm seeing here is, how is she keeping up with this? How is she staying all this active? Is she not getting all these accidents or?
Okay, so that's a good question because it's a really good question because yes, I have tripped, I have fallen, but my friends have a joke for me that I almost fall all the time. So somehow I don't. I mean, knock on wood, like I've been very fortunate. But yes, if you guys look at my personal Instagram, like you'll see, and my goal here is to show people what people with albinism can do, because I did think that I couldn't do. Like I'm a trail ultra runner now. Like I run in the woods in distances, and I did not think I could do that when I was a little kid. And it is hard. I have to take my time. I have to be mindful that, like I had a post a few weeks ago about depth perception. It's super hard for me to see the differences between what a rock is and what a root is. Mm-hmm. And I just take my time. Like I don't know how to explain it, but I have tripped, I have fallen, I get back up, I guess is the thing. And my parents always joke with me, like, you're just like the mop. Like I played basketball when I was a kid. I was not very good. Parents would say that I was good, but I was okay. And they would call me the mop because I would just like dive on the floor for the ball. And like, I just was always like needed to figure out how to, I don't know. But I've never gotten like badly injured, but I am also very careful. So I take my time. I always hike with usually my husband. Him and I are actually like partners in crime here. Like he has sight and he always goes with me, not because he has to, but like it's great to have him with me because he's awesome. Oh. But he'll remind me, hey, there's a root there, there's a rock there. I mean, sometimes it's inevitable there's going to be a bunch of them, but I just take my time and do it. Like I used to be really anxious about it because I didn't want to be the slow person because I am slower than probably the average trail runner, but who cares, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I think the most important thing is having that experiencing what you're experiencing right now.
Yeah, and I will honestly say, like, it's not easy. There's times where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this, and I spent a lot of time in my life not doing things because I thought I shouldn't do it. And then, more recently, I've moved to California where there's nothing but trails where I live, and I met a group of friends who are like, you should come out and do a trail running with us, and I was like, I can't do that. And I went and I kept going and I love it. Like, and I have friends that are like, run with me and I keep up and I don't know, I can't explain it, but all I can tell you is just don't believe you can't do it. And it makes me really happy. I honestly cannot, I just love I love hiking. I love running. I love being out in the woods. And it brings me my most joy. So I'm going to find a way to do it safely.
I know. And I can tell you one thing for sure, Christie, you are a very inspirational person to people with albinism. You don't know how many people with albinism think like they cannot do whatever thing you're doing. And like seeing whatever thing you're doing, like inspires them. Inspires little kids who like wish one day to be marathon runners and be active, outdoor active people. And thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and I actually I appreciate that, and I really think that's what I'm hoping to do. because I was that little kid. Like, I'm 34 almost. I was that little kid that didn't think I could do the things that I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate, and I want people to recognize that, yes, you have a limitation. It is not easy to go out and run these trails or go backpacking with my friends who are amazing. And I see them on this damn thing right now. And, in keeping up with people and just feeling like you want to be normal, but it isn't always easy to fit in and be normal and keep up. But you just have to surround yourself with people who actually like honor that you have abilities.
Yeah.
And I actually was fortunate when I was 13. I lived in New York, like I said, and they had this camp up in upstate New York that sadly is closed now because of funding, which makes me so sad. But it was this amazing camp when I met a bunch of kids who had albinism or other legal blindness, and they took us out and went hiking and canoeing, and that was the first time I experienced at 13, like hiking, and I was like, oh crap, I can do this. This is fun. And that changed my life. So if there's any programs where you live, and actually my goal, I'm a social worker, my life goal is to really actually be able to empower kids and maybe someday have the ability to like support and have like a camp or something like that where people can actually know that they have abilities. Like it was such an eye-opening experience for me, literally eye-opening. Like it was such a cool thing. And I've been trying my best for the last 20 years since then to keep up with that.
Oh yeah.
So.
And for those who are not aware, you also have your own blogs. Are they on Instagram or on YouTube too? And what's the message behind those blogs?
Yeah, so I have a blog. Are you asking about my blog?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I have a blog that I started, which I'm not super tech savvy. My husband's been helping me out, but I did start writing a blog. So there's a few posts. There's an initial post where it just talks about who I am. It's at ivanstrumadventures.com. There's another post that's about anxiety and disability, because let's face it, it is a huge part of my life. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of anxiety about being disabled. And then there's a post about depth perception, because that is probably one of the biggest questions that people have, is how do you do it when you can't see the contrast between the ground? So that's not, I have my own personal website, and then I also use Facebook and Instagram, and and that's how I use.
And from your website, the article on anxiety and disability, I personally read the blog, and I was very much inspired. And I don't know how much has anxiety impacted you growing up with albinism, and do you think anxiety plays a part with people with a disability?
Substantial, yes. I talk about in my blog, anxiety has shaped my life. And to be honest, I still struggle with anxiety. I still receive mental health resources because stigma-free, man, it's important to take care of yourself. But I do remember, and talk about it on my blog, I grew up I was always worried, scared about not fitting in and getting picked on. I was the kid with the giant books. I was the kid with the dorky glasses that had to get pulled out of class, put their sunblock on. I was picked on. I was it sucked. And even in college, I remember being with my best friend and getting picked, getting made fun of when you're 20 years old in the middle of a college campus. That's degrading. And so anxiety has, one, it's been that reason. The other one is I'm super competitive in my own self. So I don't measure myself up to anybody else. I could care less about winning a race. I actually love just running by myself in the woods sometimes, but I struggle with not being good enough. So with albinism, yeah, you're different. There is no question that I'm not limited. But so when I would go running or I would do activities, or I would always worry about what people would think of me, or how I'm going to fit in, or how I'm going to be perceived. And it's still there, but it's way less than it used to be, because I also surround myself with people who respect me and know who I am. But it is not easy. And I think if anybody, anxiety is so important to get, really focus and work on, because I think it shapes us, unfortunately.
Yeah. And maybe coming back to someone with albinism, someone with disability like yourself, and most of the time, whenever we see someone with disability, the first thing that comes to our mind is, how can we help these people? How can we help them? And most of the time, it's not the help that they want. Maybe they don't need your
Yeah.
help. So how do you advise like people with no disability like myself? How best do you think they can show up to people like you, to someone like you?
It's a really good question. Because a lot of people don't know. It's really interesting that I have friends now that didn't know I was blind.
Oh yeah.
And I don't, and I mean, but you could probably tell after you know me long enough, and then you see me trip on stuff and have my husband read me the beer menu. But it's a good question. And I personally, like, it is sometimes like people don't have the right intention, and they want to help you, but they also don't realize that, like, they're assuming that you can't do something, where I guess, like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a good question. I'm not someone that likes to get to receive help either, so that's another problem. Not a problem. It's just, like, one of my limitations too is, like, I want to figure it out on my own. So I think that most people have good intentions. I think that most humans, I believe that most humans have good intentions, and it's okay to be like, hey, can I help you? And if I say no, it's okay. Like, and there's always this. Never feel like you. Like, if somebody assumes, I don't know. I think if people want to, I don't know how to explain it. Oh, I'm so bad at it.
And maybe you can move to the next one.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. No problem. And because to me, I happen to have a very close person with disability, and most of the first thing, like, we got the bus, we got the place, and people just offer you assistance without even asking. To him, sometimes, like, what does this guy think of me? So I think sometimes it's good to help, but again, does the person need help, and how best can you help them? That's another question. But again,
I think that's a really good point.
Yes. Maybe asking Christie and what she's doing, what do you think inspires the most?
Inspires me the most?
Yeah, to do what you're doing.
I think of that little Christie, like, when I was 12 years old, and, like, freaking out and being really sad and not being able to really share how I feel. Like I said, I have family that's really supportive. At the end of the day, I felt like I had no one to understand what I was feeling. And I think a lot of people with not just albinism, but many disabilities, are honestly just humans, like, want to be understood. And so my goal is to show people that you can totally be successful. You can do it. You can travel, you can run, you can hike, you can canoe, you can go to college, I mean, there's a lot of things that you don't have to limit yourself. But I really think it's important to know what your limitations are. Like, no, I can't do well. That's okay. And I'm fortunate, like, my husband is great and he drives me a lot, and I'm like, okay, but I always still the first person, like, I'll just run there, it's fine. But I want to encourage people to not be afraid to ask for help, and to not, especially when it comes to being afraid of, like, the anxiety piece. Like, I've been getting a lot of help over the years.
Sorry?
I guess I just overall want people to feel like you can be successful, and having disability doesn't have to shape you. And honestly, I think having albinism has shaped me. I think because I have a disability, this is why I'm awesome. Like, I think because of this.
And for people joining us and with no idea about albinism, it's a genetic condition, right? And coming with some side effects. Some people have sight issues, hair, and the skin, lack of melanin in the skin. But unlike all those challenges, Christie here is a very good example to going extremely far from your limitations. And Lau is saying here, but people who look helpless aren't necessarily so. That's absolutely true.
Exactly. Very good point.
That's absolutely true. Thank you so much. I have a question here. What will be the first step to take for someone with albinism to get out for the trail like you?
start walking. Just start walking on the trail. Like, I mean, that's a good point though. Like, how do you start?
Hmm.
And I just, I just started, and I've been hiking for a long time. So
Hmm.
but I just take your time. Just go one step at a time. Look up, maybe see if a friend wants to go with you, or and just kind of just see what it has to offer.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So to
yeah,
the person who asked the question, just get it started.
yeah,
Just
just
move
get
on.
started.
Yeah.
Just start one foot in front of the other. And that's the thing with like with my eyesight, like I have to really pay attention, but there's so much beauty and so much like the being outside on the trails really brings me a lot of joy.
Oh yeah.
And so as much as it's a little anxiety provoking because I could get hurt, but I really just focus on one step at a time,
Yeah.
especially with my eyesight.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you so much, Christy, for joining us today. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
you are an inspiration also to many kids and youth with albinism. Thank you so much. And
I am
of
so happy and
course,
thank you for what you're doing.
thank you so much. And of course, thanks to everyone that joined us today. Also have the last question here. It's also very important to surround yourself with people who accept you for who you are. Exactly, exactly,
Yeah. And
exactly.
let me tell you, that is a huge reason why I'm successful is that I have really good people in my court.
Uh-huh.
I have amazing friends and family. It took, it took time to find those people because you could be surrounded by people who don't treat you well and you don't know any better. You don't,
Yeah.
and I think as a social worker, I think it's important to really focus on what you need in life
Hmm.
and you need to have people who support you and who honor the fact that you just may have a little bit of a difference from each other, but overall you're still humans, you're still good people, and you just want to enjoy life together.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's just my
In fact,
goal.
Ali is saying here, you're still a faster runner than him.
Yeah, Allie's upstairs right now, and I hear them. Yes, that's true.
And someone Bear here is asking, any advice for newcomers with albinism in Canada?
Oh, any new advice?
Yeah, any advice
You
to
know what?
newcomer people?
That's a good question. I've only been to Canada like once, and it was Montreal. I mean, that's a good question. My focus really is just on finding your excitement and what makes you happy because
Hmm.
I know it must be really challenging
Hmm.
coming from and especially coming from a new place and trying to navigate. And I think just finding the resources that are available to you. That honestly is what made me who I am too. Is like having the right supports, having the right uh, like supports for work and education. And so just finding that, and then also trying to find. I know where I live in California, we have a lot of support resources. Just in the Bay Area, we have like the Lighthouse, and for at least in California, has like great support resources. Just finding people you can connect with, who also can understand what you're going, what kind of the experience you're having.
Hmm.
And then I'm always available. Like this is new to me. I don't do this. It's like the first time I've ever been interviewed about my albinism. So um, please don't hesitate to like reach out and ask questions or just even just, I don't know, just
There's a quick
don't be
chat.
afraid to ask for support.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for those moving to new countries comes with its challenges, but those challenges
Yeah.
may be even more severe when you have other conditions. You have albinism, you have other disabilities. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And
Yeah.
Katie is saying, for me, was finding your voice, and you need the resources to use regardless if others may have their own opinions. Exactly, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And again, thank you so much, Katie, for coming along, and thanks to all of you that joined us today. Thank you so much. We may finish here, but again, connect next time. Thank you so
Yeah, of
much.
course. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Have a nice
And
day.
take care of yourself.
Bye bye.
Bye.